So we are going to talk about functional groups today. So you are going to need your reference tables, right? We're going to be using table R in your reference tables. So let me just jot that down, right? So table R in your reference tables. And I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so I have more room and hopefully a little bit of better handwriting. Okay. So what we're going to be doing is we are going to be taking these condensed formulas and we are going to draw their structures, right? And we're going to have to do a couple of things, right? So first, let's read our directions. We're going to classify each of the organic compounds, right? Using table R, right? So table R of our reference tables, right? Says class, right? Class right over here. Class of compound, right? That means we are going to classify using table R. Okay, and we're going to draw the structural formula and then draw the formula. So first we're going to classify, then we're going to draw. So what I'm looking at is a few, key things going on here. The first thing I like to do is I like to examine, and the easiest thing I like to do is find the number of oxygens. So in this molecule, I have 2 oxygens. So I'm going to go to my reference table, and according to table R, I'm just going to choose whichever ones have 2 oxygens. So the only ones that have 2 oxygens are the organic acid and the ester. So our organic acid and our ester are the only ones that have 2 oxygens. So I'm just going to write that here. I'm going to do 2 oxygens. When I'm looking at these, I need to examine. So I'm going to look at this over here and I'm going to examine. That's a carbon, oxygen, oxygen, hydrogen. So this one would have a COOH as my letter Q's in a condensed formula. And if I look at the next one, this one would be a C, right? Because I got the carbon. And then I have an OO, right? OO. And now I have a C, and now I have an H3. So that's my letter combination clues. So it's kind of like, like looking for clues, right? So it's going to be one of these two. I'll go back to my worksheet. I have that COOH. So then that is going to tell me that I have an organic acid. So this is an organic acid. And I know that because of the COOH. So now when I have to draw the structural formula, easiest thing to do is take the condensed formula and stretch it out, looking at each of the different elements and then drawing it out. So I have a carbon with 3 hydrogens. So I'm going to have a carbon with 3 hydrogens. How did I know that the hydrogens went on the outside? Well, hydrogen can only make one bond. So it cannot be between any elements. And now I have a carbon. All right, so now I have a carbon. And now I've got this COOH. Now, how am I going to place these oxygens and hydrogens? Well, I want to make sure that I'm always mimicking what I see on table R. So on table R, I'm going to take a look at this functional group. And what does it look like? I have a carbon. The oxygen is double bonded to the carbon, and then there's the OH, right? C double bond O, OH. Let me just erase that so we can look at that again later. So I'm going to mimic the same thing on my worksheet, right? A carbon-oxygen double bond with an OH. So I have the carbon is going to be a double bond to the oxygen with the OH. So now I classified it. It's an organic acid, and I drew its structure. All right, so now let's take a look at the next one. Okay, so I need to classify, and I also need to draw the structure. So I have a CH3, COCCH3. So then I need to look at, and it can only be one of the ones that has 1 oxygen, and I'm going to look at the placement of the oxygen. Oxygen's in the middle between some carbons. So back to my reference table. And let me go back. I'm looking for something that only has one oxygen, sorry. And the oxygen's got to be in the center. Okay, so the alcohol has one carbon, but the alcohol, the OH, is somewhere like as a branch on the outside. The ether has has the oxygen in the middle. Okay, so I'm liking that one so far. The aldehyde also has an oxygen in the middle. Or sorry, does not have the oxygen in the middle. The oxygen is at the end of the molecule. And then now my ketone is also in the middle. So for my question number 2, it's either going to be an ether or a ketone. So now let's examine our example structures here. So I have a CH3 and then a CO, C, and then an H2. But over here, I have a CH3O and then a CH3. Or sorry, a CH2, and then more I'm looking at the wrong one. I'm supposed to be looking at the ether. CH3O and then CH2. Not a CH3C. Notice I've got that CC here that I do not have over here. So now let's see, what does ours look like? So when I take a peek at mine over here, for number 2, I have a CH3, and now I have a C, and now I have an OCH3, but this can't be an ether because I would have to have 2 hydrogens over here, right, to make that correct. So it's not an ether. Let me erase. Right? I drew that. I wanted to show you what it's not, and I wanted to show you why it's not before I show you the correct one. So it's not an ether. So if it's not an ether, it's going to be the ketone. So I'm going to classify this as a ketone. So then I have the CH3, and now I have a C, and now I'm going to match the ketone O, and then CH3. Make that O look a little bit better. So how did I know to draw it like that? Because I matched the ketone, right, with the carbon, oxygen stuck in the middle. Okay? So that's what the ketone looks like, right? You're going to have that COC combination, right? So COC combination, right? COC combination. We did not have a COC combination in the ether, right? Because there was those H's over there. All right, so let's just get some erasing so that we can look at our next question and make sure that we get the next one. So you go ahead, you look at the next one. Okay, so those were our 2 oxygens. I'm going to leave our letter Q's over there in case we need them again. All right, so now let's look at question number 3. So I have an OH, and it's a chain of carbons with an OH. So I'm going to go to my reference table. I'm going to find where is one I can find that has an OH at the end. Okay, OH at the end. I have an OH at the end here, right? There's an OH at the end here with a chain of carbons. So I'm thinking the alcohol looks pretty good. I have an OH over here, but I also have that extra oxygen. So it's not going to be an acid. And there's no other place where I have an OH. So then it's definitely going to be an alcohol. So then I want to mimic how this one is drawn. This is drawn in the condensed structure. So this one, we're just going to expand. So this one is an alcohol. And I'm going to expand it, CH3. So CH3. And now I have a C with an H2, H2. And now I have an OH. Okay, now let's move on to our next one. Let's move on to number 4. So then I have one oxygen, and it's in the middle. And I have this CH2, and now the O and the CH3. So let's go to our reference table. So then it was either going to have to be the ketone or the ether, like our other one, right? It's either going to be a ketone or an ether, right? So here's my ether, here's my ketone. The ketone has the COC combination. The ether has the H and then the O and the C. So then this is going to be an ether. All right, and so then we'll do some erasing so that we can do our next one. All right, so now let's draw our ether. And I'm going to make sure that when I draw it, it's going to look just like this one with the oxygen in the middle. Okay? So then I have a CH3 and a CH2. And now I have the O and a CH3. And then H is H, 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 and H. Okay. Now let's look at our next one. Let's look at number 5. All right. In our combination here, we have a chain of carbons with a CHO at the end. Okay, so I need to find something with one oxygen, and the oxygen is going to be somewhere at the end of the molecule. Okay, so now we're mimicking and we're searching. What looks similar? CHO. And it has to have only one oxygen, but it has to be CHO. Well, it can't be an alcohol because that wouldn't be CHO because there would be that H over here on the end. So it can't be an alcohol. The ether has the oxygen in the middle. That's not going to be a CHO. The aldehyde has the oxygen at the end, right? Here's the oxygen at the end of the molecule. The ketone has the oxygen in the middle of the molecule. And the organic acid and the ester have too many oxygens. And the other ones down here have nitrogen, so we're going to ignore those. So here I'm going to have an aldehyde, right? And so here is that CHO. So CHO, right? Those are our letter combinations. Notice how I've got CHO, COC, COOOH, and COOCH3. So CHO is going to indicate that we have the aldehyde. So aldehyde. And now I'm going to draw this out. And I'm going to make sure that I draw it just like the one that's drawn on table R. So I have CH3. So CH3. And now I have a CH2. And now I have the CHO. So I'm going to draw the CHO just like they have it on table R, right? At the end, the CHO. Let's double check to make sure I did that right. There's my CHO at the end. All right, let's take a look at your next one. We're going to be moving up to the top of the page, and we're going to look at number 6. All right, so back up to the top of the page. We're going to look at question number 6. So now I have this OH in the middle, and it's in parentheses. So when it's in parentheses, this parentheses means I'm going to have a branch, right? A branch, just like when we were drawing branched hydrocarbons, right? If you had a CH3 inside of parentheses, that means that that was the branch attached to the carbon. So then when I draw this out, CH3, and now I have a CH, what's in the parentheses is the branch, so then that goes here, OH. And now I have a CH3. Right? It's the branch attached to the carbon that comes before it, not after it. So then when I look at table R, right, I have to have an OH, first of all. The only places that I even have an OH are alcohols have an OH, and the acids. Oops, excuse me. And the acids have an OH. Look what I just did. So the acids have an OH. Okay. Let's go back down here. So, but the acid has 2 oxygens, so it cannot be an acid. This has got to be an alcohol. All right, so we're going to go back to our worksheets and we're going to call this an alcohol. Right, classify and draw, whatever order you would like. So now I have a letter combination COOH. So this is just going to be like question number 1. And I'm going to classify this as an acid because that is where I'm going to find 2 oxygens and it's going to look like I always want to switch me over here, COOH. Okay? And so now when I draw this, I want to draw the carbon double bonded to the oxygen with the OH at the end of the molecule. So when I draw this, I have my CH3. I have a CH2. And now I have the carbon, oxygen, oxygen, hydrogen, right? I mimicked what I saw on table R. Now let's go and let's look at our next one. Now I have the COO and I have a CH3. 2 oxygens, right? That limits our choices, right? What are they? Which ones are going to have the 2 oxygens? Back to my reference tables. We have 2 options for the 2 oxygens. We either have the ester or we have the acid. So let's erase here. Let's get this erased and let's get this erased. There are my ones with the 2 oxygens. So it's either going to be the ester or the organic acid. The organic acid is going to be the functional group at the end of the molecule. The ester, let's make this a little bit bigger so I can circle a little better. The ester has our functional group right there in the center. So then I'm going to make this a little bit finer. When I go back to my worksheet, I have COO and now I have the CH3. So I have the COO, but instead of an H, I've got a carbon. That means that instead of the OH, I have a carbon, then that's going to make this an ester. So then let's draw this out. CH3. Now I have a CH2. And now I have a C. And now what am I going to do with the OO and the CH3? Well, I'm going to draw it just like that. Right? The C double bond to an O, and then the O, and then the CH3 after. So then I have the double bond to the oxygen, and then I have the O, and now I have that CH3. Oh, let me expand that CH3, sorry. And then I have my CH3. Okay, so now we have the ester functional group. All right, just 2 more to go. So now I'm going to take a look at my compound, and I have a carbon oxygen in the middle. The oxygen is next to a carbon. Okay, so far so good. So then I'm going to take a look at, and I have a CH3, and I have a CH2, and now I have a C. And now if this was going to be an ether, remember that it's going to be either an ether or a ketone, right? So the ether, right, I've got to get there should be hydrogens and not just a carbon, right? So there should be, notice on my ether, right, I've got these, why doesn't it want to draw for me today? Oh, sorry. Oh, there we go. Right, I've got the hydrogens. It's not just carbon, right? In my worksheet, right, I've got a carbon with no hydrogens. So it's got to be, cannot be, it's going to have to be the ketone, right? Because I've got this. So then I'm going to go back to my worksheet. I'm going to tell you that this is a ketone. And I am going to do the oxygen gets that double bond. And then I get the CH3. 3. Okay, so ketones and ethers are a little bit tricky to figure out. All right, so now let's take a look at the next one. I have a CH3. I have an O in the middle and a CH3. Okay, so I have an O in the middle, and then O in the middle means it's going to be either the ketone or the ether. So let's erase, right? So I can examine them again. Let's erase, right? So we've got the ketone and the ether. Let's just choose a new color just so we can make it really stand out. So in the ether, right, I've got carbons with some hydrogen attached, carbon with hydrogen attached, right? So there's carbon and hydrogen on either side. So in my ketone, I've got carbon to carbon. Notice this carbon doesn't have the hydrogens. So when I go back over here, I've got hydrogens on both of those carbons. So then that is going to make this an ether. So we finally have an ether. So now you're going to draw the CH3. And now we're going to draw the O. And we're going to draw the CH3. And there we go. And there we go. Okay, we did it. We got through another page. And our next video, we will work on naming our organic functional group structures. Until then.